Oh, who knew there were tigers on the South Downs? Sorry, tiger, but I have to use that strapline because it's so good. I know, and I came up with it, yeah. So our next speaker is a young gentleman that I know quite well. I've done a little bit of business coaching with Tiger, actually, and I met Tiger through Toastmasters, and he is a very interesting young man. And his passion for the outdoors is absolutely palpable and infectious. So he's from Newhaven, East Sussex. He flies a paraglider with the fastest animal on earth. Does anybody know what that is? Falcon. It is a falcon. It's not a cheetah. It's a falcon. Keeps a flock of white racing doves. He's also been through every schooling system there is, lived on a boat and sailed across the Atlantic Ocean. And he's only 21. Yeah, amazing. So I'm sure you'll love his story. He's changed the title to A Fight to Save. Tiger.
Hello everybody. So my name is Tiger, that was my birth name. But I'd actually like to talk to you tonight about a young lad called Joey. Now I prepared a whole series of lovely slides for you, and then I forgot the lead that connects my laptop up. So I'm gonna paint the scenes for you. I'm gonna try and describe everything. So behind me now is a picture of Joey, and he's smiling into the camera. He's just 10 years old. His birthday was on Sunday. He's smiling into the camera and he's holding on his arm a big peregrine falcon, the fastest animal on earth, 242 miles an hour in the vertical stoop. And he's holding this and he's smiling at it because I've taken him out on an adventure in the South Downs. So Joey's mum had asked me for his 10th birthday to take him out and teach him a few outdoor skills, which isn't something that a lot of children get to do these days. So we went out and we spent 5 hours in the Downs outside Brighton here, and we went and we foraged for wild food, we lit fires using flint and steel, we flew model gliders, and we flew the Falcon, and he just had a brilliant time. He was loving it. But something happened on that journey that made me think, I wonder what the world will look like when you're my age. Not that I'm very old, but I wonder what it will look like in 9 years. And, so we were on our bikes and we were cycling down this woodland trail. And Joey's about 20 foot in front of me. Suddenly he stops and he leans off his bike and he reaches into the undergrowth, into the leaf litter, and he pulls out this. And he turns around without saying anything and he hands it to me. And I'm left there thinking, right, do I like to say thank you? He hasn't really said anything and he just cycles off. And so I think for a moment, is this a gift? Does he want to take it home? And then I realise, in Joey's unconscious mind, he's picked up this bit of plastic. I think it's a Nutella lid, which is great. I love Nutella, but because he knows that plastic is destroying the natural world. They learn that kind of stuff at school now. So unconsciously, he's just picked it up, given it to me so I can put it in the bin when we get back. And I thought, hey, that's like quite an interesting thing. But for a lot of kids Joey's age, they simply don't get the opportunity to even behave in that way, because the statistics show that 75% of kids between the ages of 5 and 12 are actually spending less time outdoors in the fresh air than our prisoners. Has anyone heard that statistic before? Yeah, I think it was published quite widely by most papers. So the UN say that your kids should have at least 60 minutes a day outside. In reality, over 75% of our British kids are getting around about 40 minutes a day. And that's 40 minutes walking from the car to the school, or from the school back to the car. It's not necessarily doing anything that's actually viscerally engaging with nature, like holding a falcon or learning some kind of skill. And I think that's a bit of a shame. So what is it that is holding us back? Why are our kids suddenly experiencing this trapped feeling? Does anyone have any kind of strong feelings about this? Technology. Yeah, so that's a big one I had. So on my slides now, I was going to be like clicking my thing and going through the slides. But we don't have them. So I had technology, and I had travel, and I had time. So let's look at technology. And I know Paul's about to cover this in some depth, but we don't have to you don't need a statistic to know that everyone is now on their screens. When our parents grew up, they used to go and like play in the street and stuff because there was no screens to look at. But we're reaching a point now where the content on the screen is more interesting than the reality. You even down to your relationships, you meet people on the screen. The things that we value most in our lives are becoming more and more digitized and less that we can actually touch and do something about. Which is in part why I'm so passionate about taking kids out and showing them the natural world that we've got just around the downs here. And then travel. So if we look at cars, for instance, I know we're here to inspire and I'm just like doom and gloom, but we'll pick it up in a minute. So cars, I think cars are like, if you really think about traveling around in a car, commuting for hours and day in a box, and then a box not only that confines your family because you're inside it, but also all the other kids that you used to be able to play in the street are now confined to the indoors because their parents have fear. There's a huge amount of fear about letting your kids go and play in case they get hit by a car or abducted or etc. etc. And so that's my thoughts on transport. And then there's time. So Lisa mentioned about my kind of growing up and schooling. And I lived on a boat for a bit, and I went to state schools, and I went to, when I was young, I went to somewhere in Brighton that some of you might have heard of. It's called Brighton Steiner School. Has anyone heard of that? It's kind of an alternative sort of school. And we spent, up until the ages of 7, we didn't learn to read or write. We didn't take any exams. I couldn't even write my own name. And we just went out and we played in Whitehawk Park. Whitehawk Park is beer bottles and needles in the bushes and all this kind of stuff. But we didn't care. We made dens and we just ran around. We were active, not because we felt that was the righteous thing to do, just because that's where we were. It was the environment that we were put in. And today it seems that lots of institutions like schools and workplaces, this unstructured outdoor learning is simply not on their radar. It's not something they see as a priority. So that's another barrier. So how do we get past this? How do we get over this? What is the solution? Does anyone have any ideas of how we can solve this? How can we get kids more outdoors more?
Have people like you to inspire them.
That's the answer I was
Take
looking
their phones away. Awesome. You are fantastic.
Take their phones away and send them out to the downs with me, and we'll sort them out. So I think it's all very well knowing that the outdoors is this thing that our kids need to engage with, but nobody really wants to feel, I'm not a parent, so I can only speak from the kids' perspective, but I know my parents didn't want to feel that they were doing anything wrong by not letting you play outside all the time. So no one likes to admit. It's about like admitting. We were talking about personal development earlier. It's about admitting that maybe your kids are spending too much time on the computer game, playing Xbox, PS3, whatever. And once you, nobody wants to admit that. Okay, that's fine. So what do we need to do? We need to lead with reward. We need to find out what makes people really tick. What do they want? And I spent a lot of time thinking about this. What do people want in life? And I have absolutely no idea, especially with women. So maybe, what do people want? All I can say is I know that what I want, and that is to feel alive. And so when I talk about feel alive, I'm taken back to being Joey's age again. I'm taken back to being about 10, and I'm standing on the bank of this I want to call it a lake, but it's more like a pond. It's called Piddinghoe Pond. Has anyone been there? It's kind of got a green tinge on the surface of the water because it's so full of duck poo. I'm wearing this baggy wetsuit, and I know that if I go out there in my little sailing boat and I capsize, I'm going to freeze to death because this wetsuit is just so oversized for me. I was so small. But I had to go out on the water because we were about to compete in a race. And I was about to compete in a race against a girl called Alice. Now, you know when you've got a skill and there's someone who's just like this much better than you, and they're just like, oh, you just want to get them. And that was Alice for me. So I knew I had to head out into the water and do this race. And we were in a little kind of topper dinghy, which is a little boat with a little sail and a main sheet. It's a rope you pull in to adjust the angle of the sail and make the boat go faster. So we got in, we were in the water. I was kind of making sure that I wasn't falling in. And then the race began, and Alice immediately took the lead. Off she went towards the island, and she was cruising along. She was doing fine. And then she gave one great big pull on the main sheet, and she flopped out the back of the boat. And I thought, that's good, I might catch her up, I might not. And then as she fell, her foot caught around the main sheet, so now she was being dragged backwards along through the water, probably sort of drowning. I thought, oh, that's more like it, this is the one. Now I shot past her in my boat, left her to do her thing, and I went for a tack around the island. Now, tacking on a boat is how you push the tiller away from you, the steering away from you, you duck under the sail, you sit on the other side of the boat, and you go around that way. But if you try and do it too fast, what ends up happening is the boom swings around very quickly, and the weight of it and the weight of the wind on the sail just flops you over into the water, which is exactly what happened. So now, my worst nightmare, I was plunged into this icy duck poo water, and I'm floundering around. And meanwhile, Alice had somehow undrowned herself. And she was back in her boat, and the sharp hull of her boat was now cruising towards my floundering body. But unlike me, Alice is a good person, and at the last minute she decided she'd swerve round me, and in so doing, bam, over she went. She capsized as well. So now we're both floundering in the water, and I'm thinking, right, I've got a decision here to make. I could either swim over to Alice and drown her before she's up, or I try and get my boat upright before she does and sail across the line and finish. And I knew that if I could just get across that line, I'd win this, the world's smallest shoal. So, yeah, I managed to make it across the line and beat Alice, and I send her pictures of that daily. That's a great feeling. But more than being cruel to Alice is the fact that when I was out there sailing, it wasn't so much the racing that I was into, it was the fact that I was out there and I was doing something that made me feel alive. And if you all leave here tonight with inspiring thoughts about what you want to do for yourselves, that's wonderful, that's great. But what I really care about is that you go away with a newfound passion. If you do have an opportunity to help a kid get outdoors a little bit more, to meet a falcon, or even just try and talk to them about the trees, or the fact that the natural world is even there and why it's important, that will make a big difference. Because I hope that when Joey gets to our age, your age, Lisa's age, then he will then he'll be able to look back at his life and say, yeah, I went outdoors and I experienced the great outdoors, I experienced nature, and I felt alive. As the great David Attenborough says, you would not fight to save something that you don't care about, but it's difficult to care about something that you've never experienced. I'll see you all outdoors.